All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director of the Gallatin County Democrats. I am really excited for tonight's candidate and community conversation because it is my candidate for House District 68, and I am thrilled that she stepped up and ran last minute and joined in this crazy train that we're all on for campaigning in Gallatin County. So Emily, first of all, I just want to say thank you for running. Thank you for stepping up. And we would love to know a little bit more about you. So take it away.
Sure, that's awesome. Thank you, Allison, for hosting this and putting this on. My name is Emily Brosten, and I am running for District 68. And the location of this district is kind of on the border of Belgrade and the frontage road. And so it goes all the way up from Thorpe Road down to East Valley Center, 24-mile radius with about 10,000 people, close to 10,000 people. When I got elected as a Democratic candidate for 68, I was pretty unfamiliar with this district. And since then, I now live in this district, and I have come to meet and become acquainted with some of the people in this district. And it's a strong working class, diverse families and farmers. And the more I get to know the people in this district, the more I come to realize these are my people. I resonate with them. It's where I came from. This is my family. I grew up in the Flathead Valley and was raised by farmers, Montana farmers. I go back 5 generations, and they were a very hard working class. And my family worked really hard to give me and my brother the opportunities that we have today. And I just really want to support the communities that are within District 68. The last 4 years, I've worked at a company here in Bozeman called CCAT Creative. And we are a marketing and creative agency working primarily in the outdoor industry. And I'm really hoping that with the skills that I've learned from this job, that I can carry them into as a legislator. And I, in all honesty, I never saw myself going into politics, but I'm just talking to people all the time, and this is the work, and it's great. And I see these forums that we have, and listening to all the other people that are running, and I just think and feel that we can only accomplish great things together. And I'm hoping to really be involved with a lot of the growth that's happening here, and help with jobs and education and healthcare, and just really taking a role with all of those issues and really being a voice for the people. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. So I'm going to ask the first question. What made you decide to step up and run?
That's a good question. MLK has this quote of "the time is always right to do right," and I'm tired of the party establishment, and I want to see real working people having a place and a voice in our government. And I'm hoping to lead by example with that, seeing more diversity on an age and a gender and an ethnicity, giving these opportunities to more individuals and the powers and the people who are trying. And I really believe that when you fight for your idea and your vision of what you want to establish, that it becomes this way of life. And you have faith practices, or you have cultural processes, and you never stop practicing faith. It becomes a part of who you are and what you do. And my goal with this is to engage others in a way where hope becomes a practice, encouraging them to step up and making space for them, and really just creating inclusivity. I think in my own experience with this thus far, it's just given me more of a drive to advocate for that as well. So
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. All right. Who has the next question? Feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat and I'll ask on your behalf.
Emily, in your campaigning so far, what have you identified as the, I know there are issues that concern us all nationally and statewide, but are there some issues that you find that are unique to 68 that you've identified in speaking with people so far?
Sure. I would definitely say jobs and affordable housing is something that people just keep asking me over and over again about. What are you going to do with all of this growth and what is happening? And I've met with, different senators and county commissioners, and just kind of learning that the guide to growth is through infrastructure, and it's not just through roads and bridges. And I feel like we are coming together and taking those, we have the Triangle Growth Plan, which is happening. And I know that Belgrade cannot accept any more growth without a new sewer and water infrastructure. And so kind of making plans for that. And then as far as the jobs go, just telling them that, I support safe and working conditions and want to give them as much access to affordable healthcare and insurance. And I understand that we have one of the highest income taxes in the state, 6.9%, and then our property taxes are some of the lowest, but people are struggling because, wage workers are being forced to commute farther from their jobs. And so I'm thinking of ways to increase jobs here, buying local, creating accessibility for Montana-made products, and just creating, that kind of economic diversity here.
Thank you.
All right, who's up next? Don't be shy.
Oh, heck, I'll ask. I'm Rob Gregoire. Is your father Kyle?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah. I'm. So you grew up with an ag background. It sounded like you had did you have an education at MSU in ag, or?
I went to school for graphic design and got a degree in graphic design.
Oh, okay. But then I saw you went into work for Montana Agriculture or something.
Yeah, I worked for the Department of Ag for about 6 months as their design intern. And then working at CCAT, we've had a few different opportunities to work with farmers and ranchers on promoting regenerative ag and the accessibility to that. So.
See if I could, it's going to turn on my camera. But how about public lands? Where are your positions on public lands?
Public lands are a big part of who we are as Montanans. And by protecting those, we are setting a precedence on the safety of Montana and the resources for future generations. The company that I work for, we have worked with a lot of big companies in the outdoor industry and a lot of organizations on raising awareness on the people that inhabit these spaces, the people that work in these spaces, and the animals, and showing them why we need to protect them and why they are a valuable resource to Montana. In 2017, this kind of like goes back to this relationship with home and ag and public land. There was a farmer who wanted a permit to access or create a plastic bottling plant on his property. And so he got a permit for, I think it was like around 700 acre feet of water per year. And what followed was a string, like none of this had really been seen before in Montana or in a Flathead Valley kind of area. And so what was followed was by a string of lawsuits and legal challenges and people from different citizen groups. And I participated in a few of them because Although I do have a strong support with farming, it is important to protect and take action in protecting our resources against privatization. That's kind of my stance and background.
Thanks.
Awesome. So we have a question in the chat. So Rebecca is asking, hi Emily, what is the issue that you are most passionate about? And what issue do you believe will be the most important issue during the upcoming Montana legislative session? And do you have any strategies or thoughts on how you might work with other legislators from both sides to create progress on that issue?
Yeah, okay, 3 questions. All right, I would say what I'm most passionate about is support of our rural communities. We have a very large number of family scale agricultural producers, and we are seeing a consumer demand for fresh and locally produced food. And I really believe that we have the opportunity to create more infrastructure in processing and develop and distribution of food, in particular the meat market as well. And you know, if we can work in removing some of those barriers that support our local food markets, I think that that would be a great starting point with infrastructure and jobs. And then what else falls into that too is offering assistance. We have a real lack of state funded programs, particularly in soil. And so there's research coming out on soil health and interest in increased egg production and profitability for farmers. And so if we can offer programs that educate and training opportunities, and even, you know, financial and technical assistance for farmers and producers to make investments in soil health, I think that's just moving forward and creating more opportunities. Something that I think is really important moving forward to bring to the legislation is education. There's a lot of different issues on a lot of different levels of education. We currently don't have any pre-K funding. And I think now more than ever, we're seeing the struggles and issues with this. It provides a lot more flexibility for parents. There are a lot of kids working from home right now, and I think it's a good time to offer some long-term plans on investments in, you know, operational funds and technology funds for software and the maintenance of that. And you know, the more we invest in education, the more that we are investing in our future and creating jobs for people here to stay here. I don't know a lot about the legislation, but I know that in the last few sessions that they've done a pretty good job at freezing tuition and just continuing to make that higher education affordable, and also offering more money into 2-year institutions, trade apprenticeships, and vocational schools. And then the last question, I believe, is how can I talk to basically the other side, or like come together? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I've been applying this to when I'm out campaigning and canvassing and talking to people, is that now more than ever, we're seeing a very large partisanship and separatism on both a state and national level, and it's a big deal. I was raised to respect one another and to talk to your neighbors, and I personally have built successful relationships with people from all different backgrounds by applying that kind of thinking. There's a phrase in my family where you can agree to disagree. And I don't think that's a cop-out. I think that it's finding common ground to have these conversations, these tough conversations, and come together to problem solve and find a solution. And I've carried that, you know, when I'm out talking to people, it's like, whether or not you vote for me, and if I end up getting this, like, I'm working for you, I'm advocating for you, and I will do everything I can to represent you in that way.
Awesome, thank you. What other questions are there? Either put them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I'll go ahead and ask one.
Yeah, go for it.
So I am not really familiar with the triangle plan. Could you explain that a little further and then how it will affect Belgrade and your district?
Yeah, so we haven't really had a strong growth policy in our area in Gallatin County. And so what this triangle growth plan is, it's bringing Four Corners and Belgrade and Bozeman together to can connect and communicate and offer transparency and just kind of help each other with the growth that they're experiencing and how that they can help each other and be involved with it. And I know that they're really trying to make a push for 2021 and just, you know, getting as many people involved, the county commissioners, and just really trying to get a hold on this growth that's happening all around this county. So I think there's still a lot of unknowns with it, but there's a lot of people getting involved, and that's really good.
Thank you.
What other questions are there?
I'll ask another one, and forgive my ignorance on how it works, but when you get to Helena, I don't know if committee assignments are entirely, you know, at the discretion of the leaders, or if you have any input into which committee or committees you'd like to be assigned to. But I guess assuming you have the choice, which committee or committees do you feel that you are most interested in you know, participating in?
That is something that I'm not familiar with, and then I know that there's just a lot unknown going into this new session. You know, we don't know if we're going to get like who our governor is going to be. If it's Gianforte, we don't know the composition of what the legislature is going to look like, and how it's even going to go, if it's going to be in session, if it's going to be in Helena, or if it's going to be over Zoom. I don't know, and that is something that I'm just continuing to learn about and become more familiar with.
I believe that committee assignments are set by the leadership of your party. So like the Democratic leadership in the House like will work with all of the members of the House to, you know, find the committees that are most appropriate for you with your background and your areas of interest and expertise. I believe that's how it works. But I could be completely wrong about that. And now it's recorded in history as me being wrong or right, one of the two. And what other questions are there? I'll ask a question. How is the campaigning going? Like what are you, you know, you got a late start compared to everybody else and certainly compared to your opponent. So what are the things that you're doing and relying on to get your name out there into 68?
Yeah, it's just been really fast and furious. I have been just trying to intake as much information and knowledge on the different topics and kind of how to learn to be the most proactive about those, since, you know, I am new to politics. And the campaign, I would say, is going well. I have a really great support team and volunteers. And so for me personally, I've just been going out and canvassing a lot of primarily Republican voters and just kind of seeing how I'm received. And it's been going really well. Actually, surprisingly, a lot of people don't even know that I have an opponent. And so that is also kind of exciting. And a lot of people are saying, I'm voting on the person, and being able to have these conversations with people about this. You know, I have a very strong ag background. I have I come from a conservative family. I know how to have these conversations with people. And there are a lot of things that we can agree on, you know, as far as education and jobs and healthcare. And I think they really appreciate that. And so I'm really having a good I'm having a good time with meeting these people. I'm directing as much as I can on social media of how I'm available, encouraging people to register to vote, and to understand their districts more. It's all a learning. I'm just taking this opportunity to teach as many people as possible. Talking to my friends about the things that I'm learning. I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to talk to some design students who are graduating about this whole process and how they can get involved and be a voice for the future and using design in that way. So it's, yeah, that's what I'm doing, and that's how it's going.
That's fantastic to hear, and I love that you're getting that response and that no one knows who your opponent is. That's awesome. That's the best position to be in. So Rob did have another question, which you kind of answered in what you just said, that you did grow up in a conservative household, but he's wondering, how did you wind up as a Democrat then?
It's just something that I just feel like I align with more. I've been doing a lot of research as to even how we got to this point of this kind of division in our country. Like, what does it mean to be a Democrat, and what does it mean to be a Republican? And all of, their core definitions are to be a republic of the people, to be a democracy of the people and representative of the people. And that's just kind of what I've based it on. I think when it comes to voting Democrat, it's been because the people that are running as Democrat I align with more than, say, Republicans. But I have no problem voting based on the individual and not the party that they're affiliated with, and that has always been taught and accepted in my family, that to not party vote.
So Rebecca also has another question, or two. She always throws out more than one. What has been your biggest challenge with the campaign so far? And are there any resources or assistance you might need moving forward to the election?
I mean, I think the biggest struggle has been that I'm coming so late into the game. As a designer, there's been so many things that I've wanted to try to implement, and so many different kind of creative things, and I just don't have the time. And so I'm really just focusing on getting my name out there and talking to as many people, being that forefront of, like, this is who I am and this is what I'm representing and standing for. I could always use more volunteers to help me canvas and get the word out, and just encouraging other people to get involved and showing them how to do this, creating that accessibility, talking with friends, like I said. So that's been some of the challenges, I'd say.
Yeah, and just for anyone who doesn't know, Emily did not start running this campaign until the very end of July, when we filled a vacancy for 68. The person who was going to run, she ended up withdrawing after the primary, and so the Gallatin County Democratic Central Committee did a call for, did a special convention to nominate a new candidate, and Emily was the one who was ended up being selected that evening. So, like, when we say she's had a late start, we really mean she's had a late start. And you are just doing phenomenal with that start. So just keep up the great work, like kudos to you. Okay, so what other questions are there?
So I got one.
Yeah, go for it.
On your website, Emily, you talk about transparency. So if you were to be elected, how would you maintain or keep using transparency through your tenure as legislator?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I think what I've come and what I am being transparent about is that I am not an expert on everything, and I don't there's not the time, and I know that I cannot be an expert on everything. And so the best thing that I can do is to stay informed on what bills are coming up, obviously, and how to be involved with that and learning as much as I can about that. And then also talking and knowing what Montanans' concerns are and bringing those forward. Paying attention to the people that do know this, consulting with Jim Hamilton, who's also another candidate that's running on finances. Denise Heyman has a lot of experience on energy, and just kind of asking her those questions and learning from them on those certain issues. And so that is what I would apply as well moving forward.
Well, thank you for that answer.
All right, what other questions are there? One of the questions that has come up in other conversations with legislative candidates, it kind of goes back to talking about working with people of different who have different viewpoints than you. We know that we're facing some unique challenges as a state as well as a country right now. With COVID, there were things that could have affected the budget for Montana that it's not quite as big of an impact, but there's definitely going to be conversations and debates around how we create a budget and what is prioritized. And taxes always comes up in that conversation. Like, if we need to find more revenue, what's one way to do that? And so I'm just kind of curious how, if you've been thinking about that topic. I mean, the budget's going to be, it's always the big thing in the session. And then how do you intend on working with people who may think that, taxes are a dirty word?
Right. Yeah, so I do know that Montana was in a pretty good place financially before COVID hit. And so we're going to have to take a look at it at the end of the year to kind of see where we're at with everything that has happened. For me, as if I become a legislator, it's some of the big things. Yeah, it's always about balancing the budget, but to keep protecting Medicaid, to make sure that is not underfunded or limited in any way. And then I was trying to think of, there was something, and then the tax issue, right? Gianforte has made it very clear that he opposes taxes and that there will be no new taxes. Montana has a strong history of opposition when it comes to taxes. The way that I've been talking about it to family and voters is that, nobody's thrilled to pay taxes, but they are necessary to do and to be fair. And I know, like you've said in the past, that taxes are a way to invest in our communities, and it's how we pay our bills. And I think that there's a balance there in wanting, if you want to introduce new taxes, that need to be fair and transparent and easy to understand. When we had the tax cuts in 2003, I really think that created an unfair system. How is it fair that a single mom on a minimum wage job pays the same as someone who makes over $500,000? And like I said earlier, we have one of the highest income taxes in the nation. I don't think that a sales tax is necessarily the solution. I know other candidates have said it's regressive. I agree with that. If people are trying to bring on a sales tax to repeal property or income, we're going to fall short with that. Our Constitution caps our sales tax at 4%. But I think it's a great opportunity to be creative with a local option sales tax and just being really transparent and having something like that be clearly defined and showing how those funds would be allocated to what programs and projects, whether that's infrastructure or Department of Commerce or FWP. Yeah, so, or even, I don't know, there's so many opportunities there that that are to learn about. You know, there's public service taxes, there's income tax credit and creating a balance with that. And so that is something that I'm excited to learn more about. But that's my overall thought about taxes and talking about taxes, is that people want that transparency and they want them to be fair. So.
Awesome, thank you. What other questions are there? I'll start. Carly, do you have any questions? I'm gonna call you out now. Courtney, you're next. Oh, you're on mute. Yeah. Oh, okay. Or Courtney, do you have any questions? We can come. It's okay, Carly. Or anyone else? Anna or Rob?
What is your most common question that you get when you're door knocking, going door to door?
Common question? A lot of it's why I'm running. I've got a lot of, you seem too young to be doing this, and my opponent's younger, and I can understand where they're coming from, but I also think that it's my generation's time to take action and to be accountable and to represent. We are the generation that is going to be living through the next decades. And if we want change, it's easy to be cynical of our government and see how it has failed us, and it's easy to complain about that stuff. But if we really want to have an impact and take change, we really need to take action. And I'm just hoping that by me stepping forward and showing people that, hey, look, this is this working class woman, that other people have the drive to want to participate and be involved and advocate as well.
Awesome.
I finally got myself unmuted.
Excellent.
Well, what was wrong? I'm on my phone, and so it's not. So one of the things, I work in an elementary school. I'm a mental health therapist. And one of the things I've noticed is a huge division in the way people see COVID-19. And for me, I believe even best case scenario that you hopefully will be elected, and it will unfortunately still be with us or have impacted our state, even if it's less than, say, New York. It's still hitting us pretty hard. When you're out there canvassing, you know, does that topic come up? And it's so controversial, you know. How are you addressing it?
I understand what you're saying on the education level. I've seen it too. I've met with a few different superintendents, and it sounds like every school kind of has its own system, whether it's 2 days on, 2 days off, or going full time. I also know that there's a lot of budget issues happening too, where they aren't even available to have full time because they just don't have enough funding for staff and classified staff. And so I would say it's being talked about to me in a way. I would say a lot of the people that I've talked to are over it. They don't agree with a lot of the things that our governor has done while this has all happened. And my explanation is just like, you know, we're in unprecedented times, and it's better to, you know, overcorrect than undercorrect, and to protect the people that are vulnerable in our society right now with what we do know and what we don't know. And that's my stance on that. am trying to, I listen to the conversations that the Board of Health has when they have their Zoom meetings on what kind of services that they are offering and providing, and their recommendations on how best practices of what they're doing, and to kind of lead by example with that.
Mm-hmm. And just as a plug, I'm so happy to hear you talk about early education for children. I see the disparity in children because the school I am in is K through 5. And thank you so much for pushing for that. It will make such a huge generational difference.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, talking to some of the superintendents in Belgrade, there's a lot of work to be done. But also I'm so proud of kind of the things that they have been doing. When COVID hit, they were still offering the breakfast and lunch programs for the families and the kids. And there was one day I talked to one of them. He said that they fed over 600 kids, and some of them weren't even from the school. They're just in the neighborhood. And I think that having that sense of community and support is really big and really important. And to me, it's progressive and it's moving forward, and showing that support and education is a big deal, and it's worth the investment, and to keep protecting that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome, great. So I got a text question, or a question through text from Kelly Cordham, who is listening. He's a candidate as well for HT 65. So his question is, COVID has shown us how essential the internet is to businesses, schools, workers. How can our state ensure everyone has access?
Yeah, broadband is a big issue. It's something that I'm still learning about. So my parents, just kind of like back context of how I'm seeing this is, my parents retired up to the Yak, and there are a lot of families up there that are struggling with accessibility to internet. And we're talking for basic internet services, they're paying upwards of $240 a month just for internet. And that is insane. That's unacceptable to me. And so I know that telecom companies, they are able to put more wires in the ground, but then you have the for-profit companies who aren't investing because they don't see the incentive here. And so I think it's a lot of community and shareholders really pitching in, having my parents, like their community coming together and demanding this, and as well as a reasonable cost. But that is definitely something that I feel like I see Kelly talk about it a lot, and need to learn more about. So I think too that these companies, I think, have a lot of big tax breaks too, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. What other questions are there? We still have more time. Rob, do you have another question? Brian?
how much time?
Courtney? Anna? Becca?
I'll throw another one in here now that I figured out how to unmute myself. My field is mental health with children, but mental health in general services in this area are so hard to access. And some of the inpatient for children, the only one is Clear Upstate, that makes it, if you have to hospitalize a child, God forbid, for suicidal ideation or something like that, you have to make a choice of separation in doing it. I know that there's been a lot of struggle in funding that. Do you have any thoughts around that one?
Yeah. I know that when they passed Medicaid, that in turn, that a lot was ripped from the healthcare budget, including mental health services. And I know that a lot of different clinics closed all over the state. And that's a huge deal. I think what we're kind of seeing with COVID is an accessibility to doctors and mental health through online services. I know that personally, when I had looked into therapy, that a lot of the barriers and walls that I came was scheduling and just not being available to take that time during work or whenever. And so something that on a positive note that I do see is these kind of services coming at a digital level. I also think this falls into, as far as like children viewing depression, Gen Z having a lot of depression and mental health issues comes from the lack of regulation of social media. And I know that that is kind of like this new and upcoming topic that a lot of people are coming to learn about, but there needs to be some heavy regulation in that area. And as more people come forward, us demanding that.
Absolutely. Great question, Carly. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. What other questions are there?
I was curious about your website. If you've been looking at number of unique visits and how engaged people have been, and if you're able to distinguish if you're getting hits locally or from outside the area. But how is the visibility been in terms of people being able to find your website? And
yeah, it's been good. I'm a designer, so I'm familiar with analytics and the kind of the back end of website management, and the website has had constant traction. I try to check it the next day after I've been out canvassing to see if people are taking the information that I'm showing them and actually using it, or how to create that conversation if I don't see a lot. But I would say that there's always a constant interest, which is really great. I haven't hit a fall yet, and I'm just hoping to be more involved, probably on social media, and pushing that to that page. So
yeah, it was very well done, by the way.
yeah, thanks. That's the goal, right? That's kind of, I mean, that's why I became a designer, was to problem solve and make information more accessible. And designing politics has been fun. It's, I think from a design perspective, it's not very there's not a lot of budget that goes into it, but you see that when you have good design and effective design, that people pay attention, and it gets people's attention, that takes the time for them to look at it and understand and read about it. And I think that's important. So
You're just killing it. I'm just saying, you're rocking this whole. Are you sure you've never run for office before? Are you sure? I do. So I thought of another question. Have you been getting endorsements? Who do you hope to get endorsements from? Either personal endorsements or organizational level endorsements.
I have a few different endorsements, all of which I've been really excited about. I have an endorsement from Carol's List, Montana Conservation Voters, Montana Rural Voters. And, when filling out like every single one of those questionnaires, the ideas that they have on, new legislation, new laws were all that I could stand behind. Like they all were really exciting. And so I was really excited that they were willing to endorse me. I'm constantly applying for endorsements from all different people. Who would I love to get? I would love to talk to Bruce Grubbs more, and see what his thoughts are. I know that I'm trying to keep in touch with him. I sent him my website. We've met and talked a lot about this district and the different ways that I can be of service to this community. And yeah, that's kind of where I stand with that.
Awesome. For those who don't know, Bruce Grubbs is the current Republican representative for House District 68. he was primaried by Emily's current opponent. And Emily's opponent is a little bit more radical than Bruce is. Let's just put it that way. So another question that Kelly just sent me, totally different topic now. What's your favorite farm job?
My favorite farm job. Oh man, I have a lot of strong memories with my grandma actually, and she always had this red cardigan that she would hang by the door and her little basket there. And I remember the other thing too is, so my family, with like all of the cousins and aunt and uncles, we probably lived within a 5 mile, actually even probably smaller than that, radius of each other. So grandma's house was like home base for all of us. We would ride our bikes there or walk there. And probably the favorite chore would be collecting eggs with her. That was always something that I have strong memories with, and strong memories to her with. We also had a still on our farm, and so we would alternate years of doing dill or mint, and that was always a fun process too, to just kind of see my grandpa, just the pride that they would have in harvesting those kind of crops. And they all smell great, so that was always fun, and taste testing and all of that with the oil. So yeah.
Awesome. I am a city girl. I have no idea what any of that is like. All right, there's still a few minutes left if anyone has any other questions, and if not, that's okay. I do have one. I do have one more question, but if someone else has something first, please feel free to jump in. All right, so you mentioned this before, but what are, or at least touched on it, what are maybe 2 or 3 things that we could do to help you with your campaign?
I think at this point, my biggest concern is, just making sure people are registered to vote, and understanding how that legislative process works. Helping with door knocking. I've cut out everything so that I know that if I have a certain amount of people for the next 3 weekends, that I can hit the goal of people that I want to hit. So having as many people be involved in that is really great. But I mean, overall with this, I'm just really trying to encourage people that we are a democracy, and making our voices heard. And if that's getting involved in my campaign, or encouraging them to get in volunteer for others, and showing them the tools of how to walk, how to use phone banks, like that's really why I'm here and what I'm representing. So
awesome. We've been doing voter registration. We started doing voter registration events in people's driveways.
cool.
We did one in Bozeman last weekend. I've got 2 more weekends in Bozeman, but I would really love to do a couple in 67 and 68, maybe even 64 if we can figure that out. Because I live in 68, we'll definitely do one in my precinct. So I would love for you to come out and maybe help with that, or at least make an appearance for a little bit. But if you know of any other, if you've come across some supporters in 68 who would be willing to let us set up a canopy and a table and some chairs for a few hours in their driveway, send them my way. I'll get volunteers. I completely agree with you about this is a democracy, and democracy requires participation. And we all should be participating right now. So that's one of the things that I've been really impressed with your website, is that you do direct people with, are you registered? Do you know where you're registered to vote? And just thank you for carrying forward that engagement, and helping everyone, be a participant in our democracy, because that's pretty awesome. Yeah. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, Emily, do you have anything else you want to say?
I feel like I've covered a lot of, you know, why I'm running and what I'm running on, and you know, I'm just hoping to earn people's votes this fall, and leading by example, and just providing opportunity and inclusivity for everyone to participate and to have a seat at the table or play or a seat in the arena. Yeah, and that's why I'm here. So thank you for this opportunity to talk to people tonight.
Absolutely. Well, Emily, thank you for your time tonight. I know you're busy and you've got a lot of things going on. Again, thank you for running. Thank you for stepping up. To everyone who's on this call, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your questions. They were great. We did cover a really wide range of topics, and that was fantastic. So it was great getting to know you better, Emily, and I am so excited to vote for you. So anyway, have a wonderful evening, everyone, and thank you again.